Welcome back to the Always Reading Book Club. It is your girl Kiki Reader. First of all, thank you all so much for the well wishes on the post yesterday. I just wanted you all to know I hadn't forgot about you. I remembered you all. I felt so bad I couldn't get it up yesterday. Um, but we're starting a new series, and yes, I am going to do the review for all of the books in this series. The name of the series is called Forbidden Desires, and it is by Kendall Ryan. And book one is called Dirty Little Secret. Meet Emma Bell, and she is a librarian who lives in Boston. And every morning, about 10 minutes before 10 a.m., she goes to this coffee spot to get her hot tea because she knows that she's going to see her mystery man each morning. He wears business suits, so only thing she knows is that he's some type of businessman and just a gorgeous piece of flesh. So this morning he gets his coffee, turns around, looks at Emma, and then he drops a business card in the tip jar and then he walks off. So of course the barista is like, what a jerk, and she throws it in the trash. And when Emma gets up there, she asks the barista, like, can you give me the card that you just threw in the trash? And the barista gives it to her, and it says his name's Gavin, and it says the name of his company is called Forbidden Desires. So she goes to work, she looks up Forbidden Desires, and she finds out that it's an escort type service. It freaks her out a little bit, but yet she is still very curious about this man. So she has a friend that works with her. Her name's Bethany. And Bethany handles like the marketing, community outreach, things like that. And they've become a lot closer within the past 6 months. And we get a little bit of Emma's past. She was in a 3-year relationship with a guy named Nathan. It was a really bad one. He was, he isolated her from her friends and family and, just basically dumped all over her confidence. So he was awful. She's in therapy about it. And she is getting better, but, it's going to take a little bit more time because he did a work on her. He was physically an issue for her as well. So during this time, she's become a lot closer to Bethany. They do yoga, do different things together. So she goes home, she takes a bath, she does some reading, and she picks up her phone, goes to the website, and she clicks on Contact Us. We switch to the POV of Gavin Kingsley. Yes, I love when they do this. Makes me so happy with the author. He's at his desk. He's calling for his assistant, Alyssa. She comes in. She lets him know there's a new client. I think the guy's name is Troy Drake. He's a tech billionaire, and he needs a date for an event. He apparently has looked through the database and hasn't found anything that he wanted. So Gavin's like, okay, well, we got to find him someone because this guy's already given like a really huge deposit. And so Alyssa's like, well, there's a potential new girl sitting out here who gives the whole, girl next door vibe. He's like, okay, have her come in so I can talk with her in a few minutes. So a few minutes later, his younger brother, Cooper, comes in. And the three brothers run the company. So it's Cooper, well, the oldest is Quinn, then Gavin, and then Cooper. Coop comes in, him and Gavin have a short conversation, and then Alyssa sends in Emma Bell. And the first thing that happens, Gavin Dix gets hard. So he's trying to keep that under control. It's a good thing he was sitting at his desk. And then they don't acknowledge that they know each other. Not that they really know each other, because technically they don't, but they have been like exchanging glances at each other for like over a year. So Gavin says to her pretty curtly, like, have a seat, and she does it. this turns him on as well. Cooper's kind of looking like, why is he talking to her kind of mean, right? Because he doesn't realize it's like so much has happened, but yet nothing to fully know who this other person is. It's so funny to read this. And he asked her, what brought her in. She says she wanted to know, what the company had to offer. And she's not, what do I, no. He tells her, like, that's not a good enough answer. Like, because it's a real, like, who wouldn't say that, right? So she then says she wants adventure. And even though he knows this is going to be a problem, he cannot seem to make her leave. They have a little bit more conversation, but Gavin's being short with her. And she decides, you know what, it was a mistake for me to come here. And before she leaves, Cooper's like, hold on, wait a minute, give us just a couple minutes. So he goes and talks to Gavin and comes back, and he has a proposal for her. So Gavin and Cooper both have events coming up that they'll need dates for. So they're like, would you consider doing that for each one of us? It's good money. You get the same rate as the, women do, which is $1,000 a night. Would you consider doing that? And, that way it's beneficial for all of them. Like, she's going to look great on their arm, which is promotion, right? And she gets money out of it as well. So they even told her that, we can put you in contact with some of the women, um, listen to them, kind of see if, we want pretty much full transparency with you so you can see how this works and see if it's something you would want to do. And then this book does something that I absolutely adore. Now, I love when it's from the two POVs, but there's three people on this one. So then we get Cooper's POV. And Cooper is thinking in his head, he wants his brother to find happiness. But if his brother's not going to take it, he has no problem with claiming Emma for himself. So you already know this is going to be a problem. Emma goes home. She's going to let them know what her decision's going to be. She'll get back with them. And she hears a knock on the door later that evening. And it's a delivery service with a beautiful box and a gorgeous dress inside. And of course, she got upset. I think seeing the actual dress kind of messed with her head a little bit. Because she's like, oh, they like really want me to do this. So she calls Cooper. He, of course, was like, did you like the dress? And she's like, it's beautiful, but I think we need to talk. And he's like, well, I don't think we should talk without all three of us gathering together. So come by the office tomorrow. And so she's going to go to the office the next day. So she goes to the office. They meet up in Gavin's office. And he's thinking she's coming to tell them hell no, and she does. She tells them, I don't think it's going to work. And in his mind, Gavin's thinking that's the best thing, but that's not what comes out of his mouth. So he says, why not? He's like, this could be beneficial to you. He's like, it could go towards, he's like, matter of fact, one of the events is a charity event dealing with public libraries, like funding for them. He's like, so you would be receiving funding from one of these, He even sweetened the pot and said, I'll give 10 grand, to your library. Plus you'll get, the $1,000 a night, for each date. And she's like, are you serious? Like, that's an insane number. And he's like, no, I'm serious. He's like, I'm sure there's something you could use it for. She starts thinking she wants to fix up her brownstone. So she had took over the brownstone that her grandmother used to live in because her parents were going to sell it. And she didn't want to do that because she always loved going there. So she, bought it. She's trying to restore it. So that does it. She caves. She's gonna do it. It's the first date night. Cooper picks her up. She's wearing this stunning dress. They go to this event. Um, he introduces her to a couple people. He does a little networking, and they weren't there that long. It was like $5,000 a plate, but he didn't even like the champagne, so he figured the food would be trash too. So they left, and then he asked her if she was hungry, and he's like, "What do you want?" And he had took her to a place where there was like some options, and he's like, "Burgers, tacos," and she's like, "Burgers sounds so good right now." And so that's what they had, burgers and fries, and then he took her back home. And she's still feeling like she had a great time. I know I probably should shut this down before I have this date with Gavin, because Gavin's who she keeps thinking about. He's not going anywhere. That, you got to think. I mean, she's been fantasizing about this man for over a year. You know, Gavin freaks her out. Because he's very intense. But and Cooper seems like such a nice guy, such a gentleman. He's attractive. He's charming. He's all these great things, but he just does not um, give her that oomph that she needs. We then switch to Cooper's POV, and he's excited because he was excited about the date. It was even more than he had anticipated. He gave her a small peck on the lips, and he did see that she seemed confused when he did that. So he didn't want to push it. He's hoping that maybe Gavin doesn't really want her. And then that way he'll go in for her. He doesn't want to play second, fiddle to anyone, but I mean, and no one wants to do that, but at the same time, you kind of know that's what you're doing. Because I'm quite sure you've seen the interaction between the two of them. So you already know you're possibly already second fiddle. I'm just saying. So the night of this date, we also find out that Gavin called him like 10 times. And Cooper never picked up and didn't talk about the date um, at all that following week. Emma and Bethany do a workout class. They get their asses kicked. And they head out. And Bethany was trying to kind of gauge how she was feeling about dating these two men. She, of course, is saying, "I'm not dating them. I just got to go on a couple dates. And, of course, Bethany's trying to get more information, like which one do you like? She thinks Cooper's really nice. Um, she did like him more than she had anticipated. Emma did admit to that, but she is still very much drawn to Gavin. So we'll see. So we switch to Gavin's POV. He's getting ready to go pick her up, and he wanted to know how the date between Emma and Cooper went. Cooper won't give him any type of information. Um, he knew he didn't have a right to ask or to even, but it didn't stop him from wanting to know and wanting that information. And so him and Cooper exchanged a couple text messages on his way there. And Cooper didn't really allude to whether or not they had screwed or not. He was just trying to kind of play with his head. So those were funny text messages to read. So he goes to pick her up. She has on this burgundy dress. It's stunning. He actually matches her with his tie. And she points that out. They have a nice banter. And he finds himself talking to her, saying more than he had, anticipated doing. So we get a flashback as well. And we find out that he had gotten involved with one of the girls from Forbidden Desires. And the woman's name was Ashley. She was a ballet dancer, and she had aged out of her career. And so that's when she started working for Forbidden Desires. She had also gotten hurt and she started taking pain pills, and she became an addict. He clearly has all kind of hang-ups, and that's understandable. But he finds himself very smitten with Miss Emma. So he does ask her, like, basically, what is it that she loves so much about the library? And she says, I love books, you know. She's written a lot of books, or manuscripts, or half-written manuscripts, and I laugh when she said that because I've done that too. Written some and I haven't finished them. So they're just having great conversation. And they get to the event. He orders her a Shirley Temple with like a splash of good champagne. She loves it because she's not a big drinker, and that of course made him happy because it's like, okay, good, she ain't got no addictions. She goes and sits down, waits for him to come while they're going to do this auction section of the evening, and it's a few things that have already they're bidding on, but he waits for the last thing because he wants a trip to the Seychelles Islands, and he actually won it by bidding 55 grand. So while they're sitting there, she had made a comment, kind of like, pretty much like, what is this charity for? And it's to stop human trafficking and, women getting hurt in prostitution and things like that. And she's like, don't you feel like there's kind of a conflict being what you do for a living? And he's like, no, because we do everything above board. There are people that fall through the cracks, but you definitely want to be able to help people, as much as you can. And she understood that. And that made her, of course, have a little soft spot for him. I'm like, girl, you already had a soft spot for this man. So then they're about to leave, and he gets stopped by this older guy who's just so super creepy. He's looking at her boobs, and then he asks Gavin, when can I take her out? And Gavin's like, she's not available. And he whisked her away. And then um, when they leave, she's like, oh my gosh, she's in trouble when it comes in because he evokes so much emotion, so much stuff from her. She's like, oh hell, I'm in trouble. They leave and go park somewhere, and they have this nice conversation the whole way there. He opened up a little bit about his childhood, just that they came from a single mother. It was rough, and they found something that they knew how to do very well. They understand women and how to protect them. That's all that's what they know, and that's what birthed the business. But he doesn't go into any more details. And then he asked her, why did she really do this? And she said, I wanted it to, redo my brownstone. And she talked about her grandmother, the great memories, and how the parents were going to sell it, and how because she had had such wonderful memories there in the summer, spending time with her grandmother, she wanted to preserve that. And he was like, oh, okay, that's nice. And then she says to him, well, why do you think? And he says, basically, I think you like being taken control of. And also the experience, something you've never had before. And he hit it on the head. It was so cliche, the librarian being dominated. But, I mean, if that's what she wanted, that's just what she wanted. So then he kissed her on the lips. It was a really light kiss, really gentle. She hadn't anticipated that. And she opened her mouth to him, and then they started having this intense, passionate kiss. And she's gone. She was sitting in his lap. He's super hard, and he would say like all these different things in between kisses, saying like, you drove me insane, all these type of things, like the way that other men were looking at you, like the idea of somebody else having you, like pissed me off. Like he was just on some other ish. And I'm like, oh my gosh. So then he starts fingering her pussy, and he makes her come, and then he has her get off of his lap. So she went to touch his dick print. He's like, nope. And then he told the driver to, let's, go to Mrs. Bell's home. So she's looking kind of like, what the hell just happened? Did she do something wrong? So they get to her brownstone. He gets out, walks into the door, And she asked him, like, did I do something wrong? And he says, no, you didn't do anything wrong. And then he says, you have a great evening, Miss Bell. And he leaves. And before he leaves, he says, I'll have my assistant call you with our next date. And that was it. And she was so pissed. He saw the anger in her eyes. And he didn't mean for it to be as brute as it came out, but he was just saying, like, that's when I'm gonna see you again, when we schedule a date, right? But for her, it's like, we just had this intimate moment and you just shut down like that. Like, what the hell? But his sexual encounters, like, yo, that's how he is. So he it's so sad. I'm like, poor girl. He leaves from there. He doesn't want to go back to his place. So he goes to the office and Quinn's there. Quinn always works late. And so Quinn, of course, is like, why are you here? He's like, wasn't your date with Emma tonight? And then he says to him, there's something about her that she kind of makes me think about Ashley. And he's like, yeah, but she's nothing like her. And that was like the first time that he had admitted that, what had struck him about her had been the fact that she looked similar to Ashley. And so when he saw her at the coffee shop, he thought it was Ashley, but he knew it couldn't have been, because we find out Ashley's actually dead. And he was there when she was buried. So I'm like, oh gosh. That should be a fun story to find out what happened with her. Ugh. So then Cooper calls her a couple days later to come to the office for lunch. She goes, Quinn's in there, Gavin's in there. So they got this whole lunch spread out. Nobody's eating. They ordered her. She was eating a salad. And she will not look at Gavin. She cannot look at that man. And so they had called her there to basically go over the schedule for the next coming weeks. And Alyssa came in to get Gavin because he had another phone call. Quinn left out. It's just her and Cooper. And she told him, this is kind of overwhelming. But she was like, don't worry. Like, I'm still down to do it. It's okay. So then she leaves. She goes outside. And Gavin's outside. And she's like, oh, I thought you left. And he's like, nope, Ben's off today, so I got to wait for a car. So, and Ben's his driver, by the way. So, he's looking at her because he can tell something's wrong. He's like, what's wrong? He's like, what's wrong, my minx? And she's like, what happened in the car? Like, what was that about? And he says, oh, that you rolled my fingers. And he says it loud. And then she says, yeah, and then you wouldn't let me touch you. And he told her to touch me is a privilege. I was like, I almost dropped. I was like, dang. And he says, you haven't earned that right yet. And he's like, but you're mine to play with however I choose to. And she's mad at herself because she hears him say that, and yet the only thought she has is she wants to earn the ability to touch him. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this girl. So she clearly likes that whole dominant, submissive type of, thing. I don't think she realized how much she liked it. So then Cooper comes outside, sees them kind of huddled up together. His car comes, Gavin leaves, and she gets on the train. She knows she's messed up because, like, she knows that whatever Gavin asks her to do, she'll do it. So she's having a real conflict with herself right now. So then later that day, Gavin, Cooper, and Quinn, they're in Gavin's office, and Quinn's just like, you all need to stop this whole pissing contest. So I guess around the office, everyone has been able to tell that there is tension between Cooper and Gavin. And they both keep saying they're fine. There's nothing going, there's no issue, but clearly there's something's on, especially on Gavin's part. So then Cooper and Quinn leave. Sonia, she's one of their assistants. I don't know if she's Quinn's assistant or Cooper's. But she comes in and she says that, she has a call for him. And then she also tells him that one of the people from when Emma and Cooper went out, they got a invitation for Emma. Someone wants to take her as a date for a wedding in Scotland. And it comes out of his mouth so fast, absolutely not. And she's like, that's what I thought, because, you all had the private arrangement with her. And she says, can I, ask you something? Do you really think this is a good idea? Because everyone's noticing that there's a difference between the two of you, and you all shouldn't allow anyone to come between you two. And she's like, you could have always asked me to come with you to events. And it was the first time he kind of looks at her like she is an attractive woman. But again, you can be attractive and people can see that you're attractive, but if they don't see you, they just don't see you. And before she left out, she made a comment. She said, oh, I got to order the dress for Emma from Cooper for their date. This, of course, pisses off Gavin, and all he can think about is the fact that Cooper is going to get her some amazing dress to wear for him, and he does not like that. So, see, I knew this was going to be a freaking problem. Emma gets a beautiful green dress from Cooper. He comes to pick her up. Same type of vibe together. They get to this gallery. He gives her a vodka shot with a pickleback, and it was strong, but she wound up taking a couple more. Girl got drunk. So he winds up getting her out of there, and he takes her back to his place because he didn't feel right taking her home and her being that drunk. And so Cooper takes her on a tour of his apartment. She saw pictures of Gavin, and she kept asking questions about Gavin. So, of course, Cooper's picking up on this. And he says, you like my brother, don't you? And she's like, he's so rude and controlling. I don't understand him. And then she's like, can I have my phone? He gives her phone. She's got a text message. It's from Gavin. Now, Cooper's pissed because he's like, Gavin knows she's on a date with me tonight, and he's texting her. And then he says, in the text message, because he asks, like, what does it say? And the text message says, how's my toy? So then she goes, oh, this text message must not be for me because this doesn't make any sense. And Cooper tells her, no, that is for you because you're his toy. And he tells her that's what he expects you to do, like whatever he wants. And that deflated her because she felt bad. It hurt her. And Cooper felt bad for saying it to her that it hurt her. But then I'm like, I don't know if you really felt bad, because you kind of wanted her to know, hey, he thinks of you as a pet, as a toy. You wanted her to know that because the truth of the matter is you want her to choose you. And you see her attention is clearly on Gavin. So I didn't really buy him when he said that. I was like, mm-mm. So when he takes her to she has to use the bathroom, so he shows her where it is. And it's beautiful in there, and it's got like this huge chandelier. It's a beautiful bathroom. And she asked if she could take a bath, and he's like, sure. So he ran her some water, put some lavender in there for her. So the bath is absolutely wonderful for her. Cooper comes in later on to check on her. The bubbles are gone, so she covers up her breast. He says to her, you had a phone call, and I answered it because of who it was. And she was so nonchalant. She's kind of like, whatever, She didn't care. So then she started feeling guilty, like, oh my gosh, I came on Gavin's fingers, and now I am taking a bath in Cooper's tub. And Cooper even came in there and he washed her hair for her, which was intimate. Just saying, it was kind of intimate. And she winds up leaving from there. Cooper had called her a car to take her home. And on her way home, she texts him, by mistake, I'm sorry. Then I'm like, was it really I'm sorry? Like, girl, come on, be honest. And he texts back immediately, "What are you sorry for? Did you do something with Cooper?" And she just texts back, "Yes." And then he texts back, "Why do I care?" And she was like, "You know what? Just F it, because now he playing games. Because if your ass was, you texting me when you know I'm supposed to be doing stuff, I'm supposed to be on a date technically, but you want to text me, and now you want to play games like you don't care if I just lay it down with somebody else. I don't like people like that. Don't play stupid games. Don't do that. If you care, you care. It is what it is." For the next few days, Gavin was a complete asshole to Cooper, barely talking to him. When he did talk to him, it was just this snarl. It was just so awful. So the brothers are having lunch, and finally he asked Cooper what happened last weekend with Emma. And that said everything, because for him to ask that question, you already knew what that meant. He cared. Because he doesn't ask these type of questions. And he says, "We had a great night. We went to the gallery. She came back to my place. She took a bath, she went home." They wanted him, by after Cooper said this, they were Quinn and Cooper wanted Gavin to admit that he liked her. And they were like pretty much saying to him, like, "Why won't you just admit it?" And Gavin was like, "You've already had her." And he's like, "Okay, so if I hadn't have had her, would you admit it then?" And he goes, "There's no case. That's not the situation, so we'll never know." So Cooper's still letting him go with the thought that he, screwed her. Um, and so Gavin's back, he's going to stay in that shell. I'm like, oh my gosh. So Cooper leaves. Quinn says something to him before, to Cooper, which was like, it's harder for him to open up. And he even said, "You always have women, you always have them fall for you. Let him have her." Because clearly this woman has an effect on him. And Cooper knows this stuff, right? But the problem is, Gavin's not treating the girl right? The woman correctly. He's not. He's falling for her, but he's shutting her down, and he's doing stuff to make her feel like she doesn't matter. So then it's like, I feel like Cooper should walk away, because if you see her attention is elsewhere, then you need to focus elsewhere too. Not trying to be Captain Save a, I know it's Captain Save a hoe, and I'm not calling her a hoe. I'm not. But it's not trying to save her from somebody that you feel is whatever. Like, nah. If her choice is over there, that's her choice. So, I get what Quinn is saying. Basically, like, because you can get a woman, you should let him have her. But if he ain't gonna, but at the same time, if he's not gonna act like he really wants her, why would Cooper back off, right? But at the same time, it's a catch-22, because if you do pursue her, she wants your brother. Like, you're gonna be the very thing you claim you didn't want to be with your second fiddle. So you should let it go because of that, you know? But that's just a crazy type of situation. And then the bullshit, it's like, you could have said right then and there, "I didn't fuck her," right? "I didn't do that." But you didn't. You still wanted to keep it that you had been with her. Because if that means it'll keep him away from her, then you'll do it. So you just as desperate and silly as his ass. So a week has passed, and Gavin's decided he's going to call Emma. He set up this really nice date, and he asked her if she was free. "Do you have any plans?" And she's like, "No." And she's like, "I was just going to work on my place." He's like, "Well, you could do that another day." She says, "Okay." And he'll be there in 40 minutes. Now, you think about their last reaction. You see how quickly she was like, "Okay." See what I'm saying? Like, when a person wants someone, there's nothing you can do about that. You can't come in and carve out this, I don't even know how to say it. I just know you can't do it. Oh my gosh. But you can't make that girl want you. She want Gavin. So he's like, I'll be there in 40 minutes. He gets there. They go to a helicopter. He takes her to a vineyard. They have the whole place to themselves. They have different wines. There's a sommelier there. It's seasonal treats. Great little conversation. He asked her, who's helping you, do the renovations. And she's like, no one. I'm doing it. She's like, I'll watch some YouTube videos, but it's me that's doing the work. And he says, why would you do that when you know three brothers that could help you? And that girl said, I don't know if I can take that much testosterone. They're having their little cheese and wine, and he says to her, what's wrong? And she says, I don't think I can do this escort thing anymore. And he says, well, what about Cooper? And she said, we're friends, and that's all it could ever be. And he was like, even after what happened? And she's like, nothing ever happened. She's like, the only thing that happened was he washed my hair. And he was like, oh, okay. He admitted, it had been wrecking him, the idea of her being with Cooper. So then, of course, they break into this passionate kiss. And they're left alone by this time, by the way. And then he starts fingering her again, makes her come, and then he tells her to take his dick out. So she does. She sucks him off, and he comes in her mouth. So then Gavin took her on a little excursion of his old neighborhood, and he kind of told her more details of how him and his brothers grew up. His mother was a prostitute. He didn't know it for years because, of course, Quinn tried to shield it from him. And then when he got like 14-ish, by that point, he had a job, and so did Quinn. And so they, of course, tried to shield Cooper from all of the stuff when he came along a few years later. And so I think when Quinn turned 17 is when the mother died. And then they they were responsible for rent and everything else before she died. So that's what makes me think, well, what the hell was she spending her money on? If you fucking for money, it's to pay your shit. I'm like, what is you prostituting for if you can't pay no fucking bills? Why these children got to work to pay the bills? Like, this is some shit. So he was sharing like this part of himself that he doesn't really do that. So this was there was a lot of magnitude to what he was saying to her, and she did understand that, and he was trying to fully let her in, and then afterwards they went to this French restaurant that he had bought out in another part of town, and then after that he was like, all right, I need to get you home. So he takes her back to his apartment and gives her a tour of the place, and they get to it. She sucks him off. He bends her over, fucks her hard, and then afterwards he cleans her up, and then he just goes, Ben's waiting downstairs to take you home. And she couldn't believe he was so cold. And she spewed at him, Cooper never treated me like this. And he said, then maybe that's who you should spend your time with. I would have lost it. I would have fucking lost it. Bitch, I just told you I choose you. I want you. And this is the fucking stunt you pull. See, some people, they could say like, oh, they have emotional issues and stuff like that. But you got enough sense to know that you don't want to see me with nobody else. You know that. So why would you think that it's acceptable to treat me like I don't fucking matter? That's where he pisses me off. And I do not like Gavin. I like Cooper, but I don't like Cooper being no, how do I say it? I don't want him pining over somebody who is pining for somebody else. You know what I'm saying? I don't like that either. This is what turns good dudes into fucking horrible people, because they allow themselves to get caught up with folks that don't feel what they feel, you know? And it's not her fault. She's not lying to Cooper. She's not. This is Cooper's decision to keep trying to come for her. But I don't like Gavin fucking playing with her. Like, that shit is not cute. And to treat her like that after y'all just fucked is like, what? Like, that's what you do? Like, you just told me some intimate shit about your, life growing up, and then this is what you do? He's a conflict. Oh my gosh, he is a conflict. And so she leaves and doesn't cry until she gets into the, I think it's a limo or the car. She doesn't hear from Gavin for a couple days, and her mind, of course, is wondering. She tells Bethany about what happened, and she was like, give it a few more days, give yourself some time to breathe. Later, one night, she hears banging on the door, and it's her ex, Nathan. So he's banging and yelling for her to open the door. She tells him to leave, or she's going to call the police. He eventually leaves. We get a flashback, and we find out he used to beat her senseless. And the last time put her in the hospital, girl was eating out of a tube. And we also find out he was a big time cheater, cheated on her all the time, said that monogamy wasn't for men or him, but it was expected for her to do it. It was crazy. So then she calls Cooper, tells him what happened, and he came over. He's so sweet, he's so concerned, and yet she's asking questions about fucking Gavin. Now I feel like she's being fucking cruel because she knows this man likes her. Like, even if you see him as a friend, you like him, and you called him because you knew he would come. You didn't call Gavin because you didn't think he would fucking show up for you because he treats you like he doesn't care. So now I blame her ass because now you fucking playing with him. That's not cute. So Cooper comes, and she's asking him why Gavin's so emotionally distant and all this bullshit. And then she's asking him if Gavin had a bunch of women. Cooper told her, I mean, yeah, he's had lots of women over the years. He uses them for what he needs, and then he's done with them. And then he tells her, would you try to consider him? Like, try and consider Coop. And all she could say was that she was sorry. So Cooper leaves, and then Gavin calls later and wanted to know if she was okay, because clearly Cooper had called him, and told her that he had made some phone calls and she shouldn't have anything to worry about anymore with Nathan. And then he asked her if she had plans the next day, and that he would send Ben to pick her up. Now, he done treated you like he don't give a fuck. Kind of treat you like a common whore, right? Then you didn't even think to call him because you didn't know how he react to you. You called Coop, asking Coop about fucking Gavin, and then the minute Gavin calls you and tells you I want to see you tomorrow, you jump. See what I'm saying? Nah, she's stupid. They all stupid. Everybody's stupid to me now. So she goes over to Gavin's place the next night, and she doesn't know what she's gonna get. And when she gets there, he tells her they're going to do a movie night. He has a theater room, so they're going to watch Casablanca. But she did ask him what needed to be asked, which was, why did you send me away after we made love? And he was like, after we fucked? She said, whatever you want to call it. He was like, that was the worst mistake I've ever made. He was like, I shouldn't have done that. I was freaking out, And what did he say? It was the fact that he was letting her in so much freaked him out because he doesn't talk about his past. So to tell her and take her was a lot for him. Again, it can be a lot for you, but just say to me, I'll see you tomorrow. You know what I mean? That lets me know maybe you got some shit you need to deal with. You don't have to fuck me and then shut down. You ain't got to do that. So again, this is where I'm like, he kind of uses it, I feel, as a crutch. Because that wasn't no good enough excuse, bitch. Fuck you. I am sorry. That shit would not work. No. That is a trash response. I'm sorry. So then she asked him, like, what are we? And he said, well, I'm 34. Like, I'm too old to be seeing boyfriend, girlfriend. And she was like, okay, so, like, again, like, what do we call this, you know? And he was just like, you're mine and I'm yours. And she was like, so I'm your person. He's like, yeah. And they watched Casablanca. Then afterwards, they have this hard fuck session. She's on cloud nine. He's happy too. And even during sex, he kept saying how much I miss you so much and all this type of stuff. And no one's able to identify, I guess, what they're feeling. I don't know. I don't know. They're just weird. And he also had told her, this is what he said earlier. I forgot about this. He told her he wanted her to stop taking the bus to work. He's like, either let me buy you a car or let me get you a driver. And she's like, absolutely not. And he's like, we'll revisit it. No, she says we can talk about it in a month, revisit it in a month. And he says in a week. And she's like, okay. So then the next day, she's going to surprise him with a date. She had set everything up with Ben, and he, of course, is like a little kid. He's like, can't you just give me like a hint, something? So what she had done was she had taken, how they have like those fun house theme type of places, fun parks, with the arcade and everything. So she had took him to one of those. Bethany's, I want to say father or uncle owned one, and so she was able to rent it for a couple of hours, just the two of them, because basically what he described, he had no fucking childhood. So she wanted to give him that, and I thought that was really sweet. So they had a really great time. He wound up picking out a toy that he had always wanted. It was like this little pellet gun type thing, and they didn't win enough tickets for it, but she bought it for him. And then they had like this little shootout there. They had a really great time, and he really felt like that was the absolute best gift. It was his best day of his life. He realizes like shit, like I've fallen like pretty damn deep for this woman. um so the one thing he did admit to her, because he didn't tell her in that first trip when they went to his old neighborhood that the mother was a prostitute. We know that because we're reading it from his POV. But on the trip back from the we'll just say arcade, he admits to her that his mother was a prostitution. So that was like the first time he probably said it out loud, and probably like ever. Their father took off when Cooper had just been born, and I think um how old was he? He was 6 years old. Gavin was. So again, that's what made the days so perfect. But that's what made them want to go into the business, because they saw at the casinos how much those women could bring in. So they had never anticipated on it becoming what it was. They just knew, like, we know this business and we know how to protect women. Like, we could make it work. But of course now they're like billionaires and shit. So the next day, Gavin surprises her, shows up at her job at the library. She, of course, is, what a nice surprise. So she takes him back to her office, and he tells her, "You're gonna ride my cock," and she's like, "Here?" And he's like, "Yup." And he starts rubbing her clit. No, he tells her, rub your clit, get yourself almost there, and then when you're ready to come, I want you to sit on my dick. And that's what she did. And so they have this nice hard fuck in the office. And she knew, she's like, yeah, she, actually, no, he knew. Let me say it correctly. He knew I am totally in love with Emma Bell. So Cooper asked Emma to come with him to help him pick out some new furniture for his balcony. And she's like, of course, what do you want for your space? He's like, I just want like a hangout place, a place I can bring in a woman, a place for me and my brothers to hang out. So she helped him pick out some great stuff. And then he asked her if she wanted to get something to eat before he took her home. And she was like, I can't because I have plans. And he said, oh, with Gavin? And she's like, no, it's with Bethany. And then he says, well, how are things going with Gavin? And she says, they're progressing. And he was like, what did he say? He says, I don't know always what he's feeling, like he's his brother and he doesn't always know. Um, but I never thought he would, kind of feel, find someone again after what happened with his ex-girlfriend, Ashley. And she's like, Ashley, who's that? And he's like, oh, I thought he would have told you about her by now. And now you got to think, it's only been a few fucking weeks, okay? So it's kind of like, why are you expecting to know this trips me out with people. They want to know every fucking thing in 2 minutes. And if you don't tell them, you lied. No, you give me an opportunity even figure out if this is even gonna be fucking worth it. You know what I mean? Before I tell you my deep dark shit. So I don't know. I feel like Cooper was being messy. The fact that she said her and Gavin were progressing, he didn't fucking like it. And so he threw that out there. Because I'm sorry. If I tell you I'm progressing with somebody and then you tell me I didn't think they were ever such and such after they were with this other person, that's trash. You know what you're doing. I don't think it was by mistake. I think he is trying to find a way to end them, which makes me, again, that's why I say all three of them ain't shit. Because you're trying to kill whatever they got going on. You're trying to stop that like ASAP. And that's why he did that. And I thought it was fucking lame. If she didn't choose you, she just don't fucking choose you. Then Cooper has the nerve to say, "Oh, it's not my place to tell you." The fuck? I oh my gosh. So then she says, well, what happened? Like, did they have a messy breakup? And he said, she passed away a couple years ago. Of course, her stomach is now in knots. So the next day she's at work and she's doing what she had never done before, which is actually Google Gavin Kinsley. So now she's looking for information about the Ashley girl. And she comes across this article that shows him with Ashley. And Ashley looks like the spitting image of her. Dark hair, blue eyes. I mean, it's eerie. So Bethany was like, oh my gosh, you could be twins. So now it's like, okay, what is really going on, right? So then she sees the article about how the girl died. It says Ashley Moore was 24. She was found with bruises around her wrists and some ligaments at the residence of Gavin Kinsley. So she's like, I know he likes it rough, but like, could he be capable of this? So she's freaking out. So she calls Gavin and she says, I need you. And he says, I'll be right there. And that's how it ends. So the next book in the series is called Dirty Little Promise. And we will get that on Tuesday. I'll be back to normal next week. What did you all think of book one? I liked it. Even though these characters pissed me off, but I still liked it. Tell me what you guys think. Drop down in the comment section and let me know. Um, If you are in the market for a beautiful notebook or journal, I do have those available, and those links will be available in the description section down below as well. As always, I truly do thank you all for your support, and thank you for tuning in to the Always Reading Book Club.